Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Refine and Shine podcast. I am so excited for my guest today. My guest today is Bishop Kevin Foreman. Known as the People's Bishop, he is a shepherd that loves those he leads. Bishop Foreman is a Renaissance man who has devoted his life to changing lives. He is born in Denver, Colorado, and reared in Orange Mound, an area of Memphis, Tennessee, riddled with the plight that often accompanies the inner city. From humble beginnings through God's amazing grace, he has defied statistics and transcended superficial boundaries. Today, he's an influential pastor, a successful church planter, a bishop, a success coach, an in-demand speaker, an author, a I always say that word wrong, a philanthropist,
Yep, philanthropist. Yep. We know what you mean. Yep.
and an entrepreneur. He is the founder of Chancellor of Harvest Bible College, pioneering Fit Harvest to promote healthy living and the harvest movement. He has celebrated successfully losing over 95 pounds through simple yet powerful lifestyle changes. He is a testament to God's desire for all of us to walk in his shalom, where nothing is missing, nothing is lacking, nothing is broken, and all is well. So thank you, Bishop Foreman, for being here today.
Listen, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about it. Rise and shine. Listen, that's what it's all about. Rise and shine, refine and shine. I love it all. I think that it's the way that we live life. I think that as we go through the moments of refining, that it makes us to shine. I think about how you polish something. You gotta, you have to work at it. You have to keep going over the surface multiple times. I think about everything in life. So I love what you're doing. So big salute to you for creating these conversations that I believe are necessary for transformation. I think conversations are catalysts for transformation, and you're doing it. And only eternity, honestly, is going to tell the number of people whose lives you impacted. Because often they don't leave a like, they don't leave a share. You
Mhm.
never even know that they were there, but you really impacted their lives in a meaningful way. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And that's kind of, God gives us these winks or these nudges. And
Mm.
one of the things is how you're going to leave an impact. And for me, it was I'm going to start this podcast and I'm just going to bring on stories of people whose lives have changed and who have been through all kinds of triumphs and
Mm.
like learn to shine on the other side. And the thing about
Mm.
refining is we're constantly right, you like you said, polishing
Yep.
and life is a journey of constantly having to fix
Yep.
corrections.
Yep.
We're going to make mistakes on the way,
Yep.
but we're going to keep going and doing the best that we can because only one person who was perfect walked this earth,
Yep.
and that was Jesus, right?
Yeah, you got it. Yep. Yep. Exactly that. I love that.
So, what I would love to know is you talked about your bio, it's about humble beginnings. And
Yeah.
that is something that means a lot to me because I was born a kid born in the projects and, could have went one way, but went the other way. And so, kind of just talk to us about your humble beginnings and how you came to the person that you are today.
Yeah, the joke is I came out of my mom's womb with the Bible in a briefcase. So the joke is that I came out, I had this affinity towards spirituality and this affinity towards success and business and entrepreneurship. To me, it was just in my bones. It was just very natural for me to do. I was the kid who on Friday nights, while other kids were outside on the porch playing, I was inside watching this pastor who came on TV from Los Angeles, California. It was Dr. Frederick K.C. Price. And he used to come on Friday nights and they would say this to me. They would say, y'all be quiet, Rev. They were talking about me. They said, y'all be quiet, Rev, which in the South, that's the way sometimes Reverend or Rev is the way they'll
Mhm.
refer to a pastor, minister, whatever. And so they'll say, Rev is in there watching Reverend Price. And so it was the craziest thing, but they were speaking something into existence because they knew I was different. I knew I was different. And I had to learn how to not demonize that difference. Born in Denver, but reared, as you mentioned, in Orange Mound. It's an area that has all the things you talk about: drugs, gangs, violence, drive-by shootings, all of that kind of stuff. To sometimes people just see it on TV today because it's so far removed from real life. But that was the initial environment that a lot of. We had a family home there. My great great grandmother, her home was there off of Cellar Street in Orange Mound, and we learned I learned a lot. We learned a lot through that experience, because if you can make it, Memphis is known for lots of things. It's a musical city. There's so much talent that comes out of the city, but if you can make it in Memphis, that means you got a grit about you. That means you can pretty much make it and succeed anywhere, and that was important for me to learn. I have an amazing mom who I'll show this to you. She's an interior designer, amongst other things. And we were redoing this room that I'm in now. And so she wrote me a little note on my sticky pad saying, love you. She is my number one fan to this day. And amazing mom who taught me how to love. But we didn't always see that. My stepfather, an abuser, a womanizer, alcoholic, drug addict, all of the things that you would look at and often say these are things not to be. He was that, but that's exactly what I got from him. It was a motivation to not be him. I was
Mm,
motivated for a lot of my life. I don't want to be that man.
mhm,
And so it drove me to God, and it drove me to succeeding. I said, I don't ever want someone else to be in control of what I can do. And that thing stuck with me. It stayed with me, and it's still with me to this day. It's what fed my entrepreneurship, and it's what would move me forward in life. And so I saw a lot coming up. I was in a couple of drive-by shootings. And for those who are unfamiliar with what that is, literally somebody's driving by in a car and discharging a weapon at a home or whatever. So I can distinctly remember to this day. I can remember like it was yesterday those experiences, and I remember growing up in that, and it wasn't that way all the time. So it wasn't like it was a war zone. Most of the times, it wasn't that way at all. But when those types of things would happen, you would remember. And I remember thinking, this will not be my life. And I made the choices early on, recognizing I was different, to really walk that out.
yeah, I think that's so important, and, when I grew up in, like, my high school days and things like that, there was a lot of, there was, there was gang violence, there were
Yep.
shootings, there were times when, there was separation. I'm Hispanic, but there were separations, like, I didn't even understand it because my mom kind of moved us out of the projects, we moved out of the
Hmm.
projects, and we lived in kind of like and, like, kinda country-ish area, and then so
Right.
I didn't really understand all the things that were going on around the neighborhoods, right? And so
Right.
one day I go to school, and then there was some type of shooting between the party and there was, some racial tension, and, like, I said hi to somebody who, wasn't my race, and
Right.
everybody was like, "You're not supposed to talk to them," and I didn't understand it, and I was
Right.
like, "What the heck is going on?"
Right.
But I remember when we were living in the projects, like, we'd have to go you'd hear noise, and you just go to jump, lay on the ground, right? You just, like,
Hmm.
cover your
Hmm.
head
Yep.
and go on the ground, and those are the things you did, and it's like now where you still I hear fireworks, and I still get, like, shaken up because I'm like, "Okay, what is it?" You know?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. You can keep that trauma. You can keep a lot of those things that sticks with you. That's amazing that you went through that and can remember so vividly. Sometimes it's amazing how vivid you can remember things from years ago.
Well, what I wanted to know is like you just got this, you started reading the Bible, going through the Bible, you're watching these shows and things like that. Has that something that did your mom take you to church as well, or is that something you just kind of instilled into yourself?
Yeah, honestly, it goes back to that thing just being born that way.
Mhm.
So here's the thing: I'm the first pastor in my bloodline. I'm the first bishop, which is a pastor, two pastors in my bloodline. I'm the
Mhm.
first of a lot of things. It's one of the principles I teach about being a curse breaker. I'm first for certain educational achievement, first for certain financial achievement. You name it, I'm the first. And I don't say that in an arrogant way. I say that as most people who are listening, you're probably the first at something in your family, in your bloodline, in your community. You're the first to do something. And that's literally why you were born. You were born to be the curse breaker, the line crosser, the boundary breaker, the history maker. And so that's an ethos that I have. And it's something that's embedded in all of my teaching because I find it to be a very spiritual principle. And so, in that though, no, it wasn't that, we would go to church occasionally. And, the memories that I have of going to church were of a pastor that sometimes, would kind of maybe, even fall asleep while he was preaching. Not because he was boring, just because he was aged. He was,
Mhm.
he was still going, even though he was not going. You get what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
it was that type of a thing. And so, at 12, so we moved back to Denver, and at 12, I had gotten baptized, and at 12, I had gotten in ministry because a friend of mine had a drum set, and he and I were very competitive. And sometimes God will give you the gift of someone in your life that can almost be both an antagonist as well as an accelerator at the same time, because he and I would compete about everything. So it always kept me on my toes and on the edge. So he got a drum set, and I was like, I want a drum set. And I tried other instruments, trombone, trumpet, saxophone, all this, and I didn't see them through. But with that drum set, I saw that thing through. And so I started playing drums, and then I was like, I'm going to play at the church. And so I didn't, I went, I auditioned to play at church. And, at 12, I was added to the church staff. Now, listen, I'll be honest, when I started, I was not that good, but I got much better.
Mhm.
And I was added at 12 to the church staff playing drums of a staff. It was a very large church, so the staff was, I don't know, hundreds of people, and I was on that staff, and it was amazing because, again, there you go, another first. I'm the first to do music this way. I'm the first to be on this type of a team, and eventually, you go through the years. I was eventually inducted into the Colorado Gospel Music Hall of Fame. I got into keyboards and playing keys and piano, as most people would identify, and writing songs, producing music, the whole nine. And then eventually we planted a church there, which was crazy because Denver is 46 out of 50 for the lowest church attendance in the nation. So that's kind of like
Mhm.
starting a barbecue restaurant in the healthiest city in the nation. Like, why would you do it there?
Mhm.
Like, who's eating your barbecue if you're in the healthiest city in the nation, right?
Yeah.
And but it was amazing to see what happened. That again, there's another first where we built a multicultural, multi-generational, multi everything. We call it the United Nations of Church there in Denver. And now here we are going on another journey. We've relocated our headquarters from Denver, really on a faith journey to the Atlanta, Georgia area. And we're going to be launching in this area, new location here in this area. So, to your question, was it something that was that my mother did or that someone did? No, not really. My great great grandmother got me a kid's study Bible, and so I would use that and kind of go in and out of that. But outside of that, it's just my nature. I came out that way. I came out with a Bible and a briefcase.
No, I think that that's so interesting. I remember my first Bible my grandma had given to me, and
Mm,
we were raised in Catholic church, and so I
mhm,
didn't really, I would read the Bible. I'd love to sing, but I didn't
right.
really understand things. It was much later in life when I decided to go into a Christian church where,
Mm,
but not to say that Catholics don't believe in Jesus Christ, but
sure,
it was just a
sure.
different type of the way that I felt, and I wanted to hear from a pastor who, was going through the things that I was going through,
Sure.
like, marriage issues or just different things like that that could have been like they understood what it was like to be married and things like
Right,
that. I felt like I could relate better on that
right.
way. And one of the things, and it once I decided to do that and I started to really understand the Bible more by reading the scripture and, something that you have to put into a daily practice. And so I would love to know, what is your daily routine that you do? You have
Huh.
lost 95 pounds, you've shed it. And so
Yeah.
what is your daily routine?
Yeah, I think routines and rhythms determine your results. So, a routine is the thing you do consistently. A rhythm is the way and the when you do that thing consistently. And I think those determine your results. A lot of people set big goals, but they don't create routines and rhythms. So, what's that? R&R. A lot of people want rest and relaxation, but you didn't create routines and rhythms. So, for me, that's exactly it. I'm the type where everything generally is a routine and a rhythm. Even down to free time. Like that's a routine and a rhythm for me. I live by my calendar most days. There are days where things sometimes get out of my hand just due to the nature of what I do. But
Mhm,
I live by the calendar. I schedule virtually everything down to workouts. The reason for that is because think of it this way: we all get 24 hours in the day.
mhm,
Nobody, whether you're a billionaire, trillionaire, or a dollar heir, we all get the same 24 hours. One third of that you spend sleep, 8 hours on average. Some get less, some get more. One third of that you spend working. Some work a little less, some work a little more. So you only really get to influence one third of your life. So think about that. If the average age of a person isn't 100 anymore, it's somewhere around 80. But let's just say, for the sake of the conversation, the average age of a person is 100 years old. That would mean that you really only get to influence up to 30 years of your life.
mhm.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, so what that does is it puts it in perspective because sometimes we act like we have all this time, and really you don't. That's 80 winters, 80 summers, 80 falls, 80 springs. That's the average. So if you don't take control of your time, then things will take control of you.
Mhm,
So, I like to be these days. I like to be up early. I used to be a night owl, so I would kind of invert it. Now I'm up early. Like to be up early. I believe very much so in prayer, exercise, eating good. Now, I like to eat. Losing now the total weight loss is like 125 pounds. So,
oh, wow.
I lost the first 95 in 3 months. I prayed for a strategy to do it. And literally, I had to pray because I tried everything: slim, slow, slim, fast. Try this, try that. Eat this, don't eat this. Like everything. Atkins, Susan Powder. I mean, you name it. P90X, Tabo, Billy Blanc. I tried everything, and nothing ever really worked for me. And so I had to get a strategy. I did that, and so fitness is really important to me. Making sure that I eat in a way that I'm eating to live, not living to eat. And so,
Mhm.
because I was an emotional eater, that was one of the ways that I dealt with stress. And then too, coming up in the South, you eat everything is around food, and lots of cultures are that way. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's good news, you eat. Bad news, you eat.
Mhm.
You get married, you eat. You get divorced, you eat. Like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Food is always at the center of something. And so, I had to make that change. But throughout the day, really, I would say my routine and my rhythms are that I live by the calendar. I do a lot. We've got the church, which our reach is extremely large. We're a hybrid church, and we're blessed to reach thousands of people across America, around the world. But in addition to that, I also own some for-profit businesses, and so with mergers and acquisitions. And so that's a whole nother beast within itself. And so I keep my days as efficient as I possibly can because they normally start when it's dark and end when it's dark.
Mhm. No, I totally agree. I do time management coaching, and I think it's so
Ah,
important that when you do your calendar, like people just like, oh, I'm just gonna whatever. I want freedom, and I want this, and I want that. Well, you really gotta like if you just think I want freedom, and you keep taking a
yeah,
day off, and then the next day, and the next day, the next thing you know, a week goes by, and you've done nothing, right?
exactly.
And so scheduling your time, and I always tell people the first thing you do on your calendar is you schedule time for you. And I'm
Yep.
talking about self-care, when you're going to eat, like when you're going to work out, when you're going
Yep.
to move your body, and
Yep.
then family time comes in, and then you
Yep.
worry about work and everything else because then you don't
Yep.
want to tell your family, okay, you're second to last, right? You want to
Yep.
put them, you know. I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Uh,
I love that.
so I love that you have this, you're multi-passionate. You have, you're running the church, you're doing all
Hmm.
these things with the church. You have the Bible college, and
Hmm.
then you have all these you're just full of entrepreneurship. And is that something? Have you ever worked for a company, or have you always been besides when you worked as at the church? Have you always been independently?
Great question. So I started my first business when I was 12. Also, same year I got into ministry, and I had there was this bank in Denver called Young America's Bank where they had financial products that were specially designed. They had a special charter from the state to offer financial products for kids under 18, of course, with parental consent. So I actually pioneered their business loan program. So to this day, they need to update their graphics, but I like it. I actually like that they have it because to this day, when young people go into the bank, middle school, high school, kids, whatever, elementary, whatever, and they go into the bank on the second level, there's this thing called Young Ameritown, which is basically a simulated city where kids go in, you can get different jobs. You can be the mayor, you can be the chief of police, you can be the news broadcaster, whatever, and you learn how to live life, right? It's a simulation of a city. Well, every entrepreneur that goes up to that second level, they have to walk past the picture of me holding that business plan when I was 12 years old, the very first one. And that's just, to me, that's just something that's just so amazing because that one thing that I did as an adolescent, it still speaks to this day. I just, that always gets me when I see it. In fact, I got a picture of it right over there. But nonetheless, so that I've always been entrepreneurial. With my, of course, at 12, it's not like I started a business then and then became Richie Rich. So
Right.
the business, I learned a lot and then, pivoted from there. And so I wanted to really go into law. So right after that, I went and I started as a paid internship at a lawyer's office because I wanted to be a lawyer. Like being a bishop was not my plan. This was God's plan. This is not my plan. So I wanted to be a lawyer. So a family member was dating a lawyer. And so I leveraged that. So he wasn't calling me back. So I'm an aggressive personality, a positively aggressive personality. So I'm going to get what I want. That's the way that I view it, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way. It just means that
Right.
I am persistent. So I'm going to pursue it. And so I went up to his office one day and I just said, listen, I want to work for you. I want to be a lawyer one day and I want to work for you. He made me an offer on the spot and I countered him. I said, I'll take this. He said, okay. All right. So I got what I wanted in terms of compensation. So here I am, a kid getting way more than minimum wage because I really want to go into law. So I wanted to do that. Did that for a while, and then again, entrepreneurialism was always in my veins. You fast forward, I worked for a modeling company, and so I was their director of marketing, and that's when something really began to click and come alive for me. Is that it's about the story you tell and about marketing. Marketing, everybody's in the business of marketing. Doesn't sometimes people fight to be the best when often it's you want to be the best known, because if you're the best known, you become the standard bearer. And so I think that's just an important nuance. But nonetheless, did that. And I started there as a telemarketer, believe it or not. And then eventually I was made the director of marketing. I'm in high school, mind you. So I'm the director of marketing. I take the team from zero when I get there because it was a buyout, new ownership. And we had over 80 that were part of that team by the time I departed. Got into the mortgage business. And that would be one of my first big successes in business. By 21, I built Denver's largest Black owned real estate finance brokerage, mortgage company. And that was amazing. And in that time, the industry collapsed after that. And so I got out of that business, but it wasn't just mine. The entire industry collapsed. And so, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, "A man that doesn't work doesn't eat." So I was like, I like eating, so I got to work. I literally applied for every job you could think of. Now, mind you, I'm still in ministry, in music ministry, and doing that, but I just believed in the importance of doing both, of business and ministry. And so I did that. And I would send out 40 resumes a day. This is before Indeed, this is before Monster, and whatever the other, like, this is when you used to go read the paper and fax resumes.
Hmm.
And so I faxed resumes, and I would fax 40 a day, and nobody would call me back. Domino's Pizza wouldn't call me back. And this is before they got new management and changed the recipes. This is when they were still not very tasty, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Pizza Hut wouldn't call me back. Nobody would call me back. I couldn't get a job doing anything. In fact, they would say, you're overqualified. Look at all of what you've done. And I'd say, you guys don't understand business. You should want someone like me that is overqualified, that you can get at a discount. Let me come in and fix everything. And I won't be there forever, but get the use out of me. Like, come
Yeah.
on. And so
Yeah.
they didn't get it. So that was really when I had to have a serious conversation with God. And the joke is this, that God backed me into a corner and said, you can do whatever you want, but this is your only option. And so it was in that moment, I said, okay, God, none of these things are working. What do you want from me? And I known that I was supposed to start a church January of that year. That's 2006. I knew that we were supposed to do it. I didn't want to do it. I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to go through the business side of it was easy to me. I knew that it was going to come with a lot. I knew that I was giving up my life as I knew it, and that I was pursuing this calling, and I was going to be in the spotlight. And I've been used to the spotlight, but that was a whole nother level.
Hmm.
You even see it in culture today. People are very hypercritical of pastors. If a pastor sneezes wrong,
Yeah.
it's a blog about it, it's a YouTube about it, that type of thing. And so, not that some of that criticism isn't maybe in certain instances may have some level of veracity. Nonetheless, it is a role that is under high scrutiny, and so I don't want to do it. But I eventually said yes, and that I would do that. So you asked me a question. I just want to give you a little bit of background there. So when I did work for others, I was in preparation to do my own. But most of my life, I have called my own shots.
I think that that's really important is that you had that drive and tenacity to keep going for it. Uh,
Yeah.
it's funny that you worked as you wanted to be a lawyer. I also wanted to be a lawyer as well.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, it was a summer youth program that we qualified for because like the state was funding kids to work in different arenas, and I was picked to work at the courthouse. And as I worked at the courthouse for 2 summers, I was 14 and 15. Got paid
Wow.
above minimum wage. I realized I did not want to be in law anymore. uh, there were
He
some
said, "I
crazy
don't like this."
yeah, well, it was some crazy cases that went on. It was,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the movie Aaron Brockovich, but that was, I worked in the courthouse where that case was going on, and so that was one thing. But
Okay.
it was also like the O.J. Simpson trial was going on during that time. It was
Yeah.
just a lot of things, and I'm like, and then there was some hard things, like there was, the domestic violence, and I worked in family law, and um, a tragedy happened where a wife was killed by her husband
Oh
over the
no.
weekend, and I
Oh
had
no.
seen her on Friday. So it was like I couldn't, in my heart I couldn't do it. I was like,
Yeah.
this is just one case, and how many others are going to be like that? It just affects you, and it's like I can't do
Yep.
this. And
Yep.
so God called me to do something different, and so that
Yeah.
was okay. But I think it's important is that like how we go and have all these different experiences. It really helps to shape who we are today,
It does.
and what an impact we can make. And I
Yeah.
love that you kept getting these denials, and I know that it was
Yep.
probably hard, but
Yep.
it goes back to like God was like, no, I
Yep.
gave you a command, and you have to do it.
You're gonna have to follow. And it was one of those things of where I resisted, and then I just couldn't resist anymore. And it's why now I live a life where my answer is just yes. I don't fight God. My answer is yes. And I think the reality is then I begin to pray something pretty powerful. Is that make me want what you want so that I like it, because sometimes there's things that we can do where it can kind of feel like you're kicking and screaming or why. And I began to say, maybe the creator knows more than the created. So, which of course, I believe the answer to that is yes. And so in that, it gave me the freedom to be able, I mean, I tell you, I love what I do. I love the impact that we have on the lives of people. I love that every day I'm growing. It is amazing to see what has happened and what continues to happen. I really only feel like I'm scratching the surface of it.
I think that that's important, and that goes to my next thing that I was thinking of. Like you had mentioned that you're like the rule breaker, not the rule breaker, but you're the
First
uh
breaker. Yeah.
curse breaker,
Yeah.
right? And so, how does it feel like to always be like considered the strong one? Like, how does that feel
Mm.
like?
You know what? Because I've always been that, it is normal. But when you step back and look at it, it also is a level of you get so used to being strong for everybody and for everything that when you have moments, you can sometimes think something's wrong and nothing's wrong. You're just being a human.
Mhm,
You're just having human moments, human experiences. And so I think for me, it just goes with the seat. It's like when you're the strong one, you deal with the heavy loads,
mhm.
right? It's the job, and I don't say that in a negative or pessimistic way. Quite the contrary. I see that as, you know what, I could be trusted to handle some weight that other people couldn't couldn't handle. Their weight's going to be different. This is my weight. This is what comes with my seat, and so it gives you a strength. And but you're right. When you're always that strong one. Sometimes you just do it. And sometimes you step back and go, who's going to be strong for me? And what I had to realize for me is that this is where my relationship with God for me is so important, because it's like, who fights for me if I'm fighting for everybody else? Well, you fighting for everybody else. Only God could fight for you. Only God would
Mhm.
be the one that would be able to carry you, to see you through. Not that He's not doing it for these other people, but in the if you were to look at it from a hierarchical contextual experience, that you need something that big to cover you. Like a king size bed needs a king size sheet. And so if you're the strong one for everybody, you can't expect this twin size sheet to be able to cover you or get you, understand you.
No, I think that that's really important, and that's something like I think that I don't think I know that God will never give you more than you can handle, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, okay, I don't even want to ask God like what's next because He's going to be
Yeah.
like, let me. This is just touching the surface,
Yep.
but as you go through and you're very spiritual. You help people. How do
Yeah.
you protect your while you're going through your own spiritual journey and you're learning
Mhm.
these things and you're helping others? How do you protect your mental health?
Oh, this is so good. So I believe so. The word therapy means to heal. And I believe therapy comes in a lot of different ways. There's a scripture that says God is our healer, and it's so funny. The day that you and I are recording this, it's when I do one of my pop ups called Therapy Tuesday, and that it's literally where we focus on healing. Healing is a journey, not a moment. Things can come to culmination in a moment, but that was a journey to get there. And so I think when you understand that healing is a journey, you have to create a lifestyle that promotes healing. So one of the things I do is I look for things that are therapeutic for me. So one of the reasons that fitness became such a thing, matter of fact, most people when they see me, if they don't know that I'm Bishop Foreman, one of three things happens. Either they know who I am, so they know Bishop Foreman, so hey Bishop, and they'll turn their phones toward me and point to their phones and say, I was just watching you. I'm looking at your videos, and you don't know how much you've helped me, which is so amazing to have that happen. Happens everywhere I go. It's such an honor to see that impact, because you never really know. That's why I mentioned that to you. You never really know. You can think you know because you're looking at the data, but the data never tells the story. in totality. Second thing that happens is that I'll get you look really familiar, and that's generally because they've seen me somewhere, especially in Denver, because Denver we're all over TV and billboards and stuff like that. Or third, they'll see me, they'll say, "Are you a coach? Are you a trainer? Like, do you play football or you play sports or something?" Because they'll look at me and they'll say, they'll just I'm always dressed like to go to the gym, coming from the gym, like or I'm about to like I look like I'm always doing some gym stuff, and that's therapeutic for me. Good conversations are therapeutic for me. I keep a tight circle. There's this scripture that says iron sharpens iron. So if you're strong, you have to have strong people around you because iron will cut through aluminum. And if you got a bunch of aluminum people around you, they'll say you're too strong. They'll say you're too this, you're too that, you're too this. They will literally try to dilute you to being a different type of metal than you really are. So I keep a strong circle around me of strong individuals that I can be both Clark Kent and Superman. You need people around you, I believe, that can see you in your strongest and see you in your weakest and still respect you. Because what happens for a lot of people, the reason they don't like to be vulnerable is because people will weaponize their vulnerability against them. And so I've learned I gotta have people I can be strong. And then I gotta have people where I cannot be strong. And once I do my complaining, because I'm a human being and we have our
Hmm.
moments of complaining and I'm what about pop, 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 all of that. And this is what every single one of them will eventually say something like this by the time that conversation is over. Okay, I understand that. So what are we going to do about it?
Hmm.
And I'm that for them. So to me, that's therapy. So fitness is therapy. Good conversations are therapy. Also, one of the things that I did that's very pragmatic, and this is something recent in the last couple of years, is I started putting my phone on do not disturb. I know that can sound really like pretty elementary, but for me, I was always accessible to those who had access. The problem with that is when you leave things as the scope and the scale of which I do, somebody always needs you. And then you add social media. There's always messages. I get 300 to 400 messages a day on Instagram alone, and I respond to them. Now they don't all get responded the same day, but I generally respond to them if I can, and generally I make the time. So um, putting my phone on D&D was a protection because all of the bing, 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 I discovered that it made it so that nothing was ever really sacred because my time could always be interrupted and my thoughts could always be interrupted. Now listen, I'll be honest. There's some that don't like it. My mom is one that doesn't like it. I'm sure when I get married, she might not like it, but at that point, I'm sure we can find a way. I'll find a way to give her, to let her bypass that or whatever. But my point is that at the end of the day, that was one of the most helpful things for my mind and my mental health to not be constantly bombarded with interruptions so that I could focus. Because one of the things I remembered is going through a period of time where I was like, my focus is off. Like, I'm a very focused person. I remember going to my doctor and I said, Doc, what's up in my focus? What's going on? What is this? And she said the most powerful thing. She said, Dr. Foreman, you do not have ADHD or anything like that. She says, you have been working since you were a kid at 115% of a normal person's capacity. She said, so you just had a couple of human glitches, just a couple of human moments. So I was like, that's it? I said, that's it? Like, what are you talking about? She said, that's it. She said, you're used to operating at such a capacity that there was moments where you didn't and it concerned you, and so that's been one of the most beneficial things for my mental health.
No, I think that that's so important, and it goes back to, like, when I say I teach people time management, that's one of the first things. I also have a distractions course because so many people just get
Mhm.
distracted, and then when you're distracted, it takes you about, on average, 23 minutes to regain focus, and so
Mm,
putting yourself on do not disturb, even, like, turning your phone face down, and you're right, like, there's some people who don't like it, it's called boundaries, but, like, for
mhm,
my son, he's like,
mhm.
"I'm gonna put you," because sometimes I'll be recording a podcast and he's trying to
Right.
call, and he's like, "I'm gonna put," my husband, he's like, "I'm gonna put dad as my emergency contact." I'm like, "Please do," because
Right.
and it's not that I don't love him, it's just, you know what I mean? It's like you got things to do and,
Right.
you gotta make sure that you're doing focusing on what you have to do because like we talked about earlier, our time is limited, our time is
Right.
precious, and we
Right.
gotta make sure that we're focusing on the right things, and when we're distracted and pulling from here to here, and it gets to a multitasking situation, we get overwhelmed, and then we're not putting the intentional focus onto things that we need to focus on. And mistakes happen, and it's so easy, and then you got to do rework and all the other things. So I'm
Right.
a big advocate for do not disturb. I think it's.
Wow.
I also
I,
put
I
my
gotta
phone in
I
sleep
gotta
mode.
just say that 23-minute thing, I've never heard that. That is powerful, that you teach that and you do that, because that is so true. Because I you can get pulled over here, pulled over here, pulled over here. And again, when you're managing multiple things from an executive level, it's one of those things that that sounds just amazing. And to hear that, it makes perfect sense, because normally then before you know it, especially since we've come to Atlanta, it's like, I wake up and then 20 minutes later, the day's over. I'm like, what happened? What happened? Where did the day go? And that's powerful.
Yeah, on average, we lose about 2.1 hours a day with distractions if we don't,
Wow.
regain time. So you think about that, that's an 8-hour workday. So,
Yeah.
do the math. That's a lot of time we're
Yeah.
distracted. And so
Wow.
we got to set those boundaries because, especially if God has called us to do something,
Yeah.
um, and like we can't keep putting off, oh, I'll do it later, I'll do
Mhm.
it next week, I'll do it because our time on earth is limited and we only have a
Yes.
certain timeline to make
Yes.
that impact. So
Yes, that's so powerful. No, that to be honest, that I live life as a student. So any environment I go in, where 99% of them I'm going in as a teacher, but I stealth and secretly go in as a student because I live life as a student. I'm always learning. I am taking that all day long, and I want you to know, the first several times I'm going to credit it to you. Now, about that fifth or sixth time, I'm going to spin it in such a way to where it's mine. I'm just joking, but no, that's so powerful. Thank you for that. That's interesting.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I think that's important, and I love that you said that you're always, you're going in. You're a teacher, but you're always going in as a student as
Yes.
well. Because when we stop learning, then we slowly die inside. Like, and I
Yes.
think that God has made us such a powerful person. He created humans to be so powerful that our growth is not limited, and so every
Right.
day that we can learn something new is so powerful.
Right, right. No, I think that's great, and I think that's also part. When people talk about Bishop Foreman, what's made you successful? Why do you continue succeeding? How do you keep winning? It's because of that. If you go into life as an expert, experts, when they are wrong, it's like the end of the world. Everything failed. Everything fell apart. If you're going into as a student, you make mistakes. You get things wrong. You mess up. I didn't get the test right. Okay, I'm not the expert. I'm a student. I'm learning. I'm growing. It makes life fun. I think so many people go through life and they don't have fun. And again, I'm serious. I love serious. I love to get things done. I love to execute, but I also like to enjoy the journey. The first thing I got when I moved out, my mom bought me a thing when it was a kid. Like, I was the kid who moved out like the day I turned 18. I was out, because I've been planning on it, right? So I was the kid at 16, the day I could drive. I set the car deal up, had the money ready to go. I told my mom, I said, we just have to go down to the dealer. Everything's done. She said, what do you mean everything? I said, the deal has already been negotiated. I just need you to sign, and I need your insurance. That's all I need from you is your signature and insurance. The deal was, and it literally was that way. The deal was done. My first car was an Infiniti G20 and a sunroof. Oh my God. But she got me this thing, and I'm looking at it right now. I've kept it all these years. It says, life is a journey, not a destination. And if you treat it as a destination, you'll think that when I get here, I'll be great. When I get here, I'll be good. And what I've discovered constantly getting to my theirs is that once I got there, it's like, what next? What next? What
Mhm.
next? It's a destination where you're excuse me, it's a journey where you're constantly evolving, constantly growing, constantly getting better.
No, yeah, I think that's so important, especially when it goes down to, um, like when you say we get there and we're done, like it's like we want this car and then we work so hard to buy this car and then that's it. And we're like, oh, okay. Or we work so hard, just all the different things. But
Hmm.
are we really living life too? Are we really
Hmm.
working on and enjoying the moments? Every step
Hmm.
that we went and moved forward, I think is also important.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
I we have a lot of similarities. I bought my first car before I could. My mom said, "You before you can take your test, you have to buy your own car. I'm not going to be able to buy you a car." So I bought my first car, and
Okay.
until I could get my license, my mom would drive it back and forth. I had a Toyota
Oh, wow.
Corolla, but that's she would drive it. She's like, "Oh, I love this car," and then I was like, "I got my license," and then she's like, "Oh, I guess I can't drive your car anymore."
Right, right, right. No, listen, those Corollas are good cars. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. Well, we came from a family of 6, so I was the 3rd, and so if she tried to buy everybody a car, it was just, and like I
That's
said, we
awesome.
grew up in the projects, but, she got us out of that. She did great things, and for us, and showed us the way. Like she
Yeah.
didn't hand us things, but she showed us the way, and it was just I just love my mom. She taught us great things. But
That's
I
fine.
love that you just how you went after things. Like you just didn't, if and I also love that you say like if we make mistakes, it's okay. Like
Yeah.
we got to learn from them. And if you don't learn from your mistakes and you repeating things over and over and over again, then
Right.
that's just dumb.
Correct. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And I think when I recently did one of what I call my pop ups when I go live, and that was actually what I talked about: learning to love your mistakes, because your mistakes, if they are unavoidable, you're gonna make some. This is human nature. If they're unavoidable, I might as well learn to love the thing that I can't avoid. And you say, well, why would you love making mistakes? Well, it's loving the fact that one, I can recover from a mistake. Two, it's loving the fact that I can learn from a mistake. And three, it's understanding that the mistakes aren't the end. It's not over. I always say it like this: if you still got a pulse, God still got a plan. It is not over. And so that was different because I used to be the type where I didn't like mistakes. Make a mistake, like, oh my God, like this is horrible. This is a big deal. Not because I was a perfectionist, but because I believe that I needed to give everything that I did 100%. And here's the truth about being a human: you can give everything 100%, and you still are going to make mistakes. So you might as well learn to love what you can't avoid. You might as well learn to love what doesn't. And I've discovered that some of my quote unquote mistakes have been some of the best things I could have ever done. Like some
Mhm.
of my best books or best moments or best times or best business deals. Some of my best was because of what I thought was a mistake at first.
Mm. I think that's so powerful. I wanted to ask you, are you a risk taker?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now here's what I will say, and I'll be very honest with you and your listeners and your audience. Um, I was much more of a risk taker before I became, everybody measures success in a different way, but before I achieved levels of success, I was more of a risk taker. And then I asked myself, why are you less of a risk taker now that you've achieved levels of success? And I came to realize that sometimes it's easier to take risks when you feel like you have, quote unquote, nothing to lose, than when you feel like you have something to protect. And sometimes past success becomes the enemy to future success because you won't do what you did to get that to get this.
Mm.
And so I had to go through a process of realizing like you become way too conservative in your risk taking. And then I had to get back out there and start walking on water again. So hence moving my whole headquarters after 18 years to a city I did not want to move to. But I realized that it was a big risk. But I also realized that it was one, I had a spiritual conviction to do it. Number two, I realized that, again, back to mistakes. Let's just say it was just all in my head and I just making it all up, no big deal. It's recoverable. Let's just say it was a mistake. Well, you can always bounce back. Um, and I had to learn how to take my foot. I realized at a certain point in my journey, I had started living with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake at the same time. And then saying, well, I'm putting out a lot of energy. Why is this not going anywhere the way, or not? Let me say it this way: why is it not going the way or the speed I want it to go?
Mhm.
That's when I had to realize the issue was I needed to return to the level of risk taking that made me successful in the first place.
Mm, that's so powerful. I think that's so important. One of the things I just wanted to talk about is, how can people, if they wanted to connect with you, I mean, I know that they can Google you and they can find you, but what is the best way, like to get in touch with you or just to watch your sermons and all of the things?
Absolutely. We got books, we got apps, we got all of that. So Bishop Foreman, Foreman.com is an amazing way. One of the things we're doing, because I believe in sowing wherever I go. I think you sow where you go. And we wanted to, all of your audience, all of your listeners, anybody connected, we want to sow into them. And so if they text the word Bishop to the phone number 55498. We want to give them a discount on everything in our online store. That's books on finances, books on relationships, books on evolving, books on breaking generational curses. A lot of the things we talked about today. That's all types of things that are great resources. But bishopforeman.com is that website, and then they can also go to. I just text that word harvest to the phone number 55498 and can connect that way. But everything they'll want thought is there. Social media, if you're listening, you're watching, you're connected somehow, and something that was said blesses you, I love to know that. So you can literally go to social media. Instagram is the best platform, and shoot me a DM and just say, "Hey, Bishop, I heard that. And when you said that, it blessed me." I always love hearing the feedback because back to that point, you never know how you're impacting somebody's life. A gentleman came up to me at the gym the other day. He's holding his phone and he points it at me and he's like basically trying to see, is this you? I'm like, that's me. He said, you have no clue. So I was going through a divorce and I felt like my life was over. And he said, since, it was several months, he said, for the last several months, he said, I found you. And he turns his phone, he opens it to show me all of the videos that he's bookmarked and stuff. He said, I found you. And he says, every day I wait to hear what you have to say to me.
Mm.
And when you hear one story, like, oh, that's nice. When you hear hundreds of stories, like, okay, that's cool. When you hear thousands and thousands of stories like that, it makes you say, whoa, what a privilege.
I think that's so powerful. And as you go and make an impact on that one person, they're going to go and make an impact on that person. And then it's
Yes,
just like, and it's doing what God has designed us to do, right?
correct. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly, you're using your life to change the lives of other people. And I think that's what life's all about.
Mm. I think that's so powerful. And I will definitely make sure that I have all the links and that code as well in the show notes as well. But as we wrap up, I wanted to know what is a word, a phrase, some type of action, anything that my listeners can do today in order to help them refine and shine.
Oh, you know what? I would say this. Don't panic, pivot. That'll be the takeaway phrase. When you think about refine and shine, what you think is your downfall is actually going to be your biggest upgrade. What hurts you deepest is always going to help you most. I believe in pronoia, which is the opposite of paranoia. It's literally, paranoia says there's a conspiracy against you. Everybody is against you. Pronoia literally says everybody's for me. All things are working together for my good. And I believe that for everybody listening, if you adopt that mentality, don't panic, pivot. There's a conspiracy behind everything, every now, person, place, thing, or idea. They're all working together to benefit and to bless me. When you shift your mind that way, it helps you to literally rise, refine, shine, define every iron we could put on there. It helps you to do all of it because life is not what happens to you, it's what you do with it.
hmm I think that's so important, and it makes me think of you got to get out of that victim
Yep.
mentality and become the victor. And we are in
Yes.
charge of our own destiny, and we
Yes.
can't control if things happen to us, but we can control how we respond to them and how we
Correct.
show up every single day.
So true. So true. I mean, look, you said it. Well, you preaching.
Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed having you on the show today.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.